Welcome to Cross-Platform Workflows with Adobe Creative Cloud. My name is Michaela. I'm the Digital Lounge Coordinator here, and I'm going to be taking you through today's workshop. We're going to be working with several different Adobe softwares, and I'm going to show you how they talk to each other and how you can utilize a wide array of apps within the Adobe Creative Cloud suite to work on one single creative project. So, today, what we'll be doing is we'll be learning first how to create a LUT in Photoshop for Premiere Pro. Basically, a LUT is something, it's basically an easy way to describe it would be it's kind of like a filter that you put on your video to aid in your color correction. So instead of going through and individually color correcting every clip, you can use a LUT in order to have like a uniform look. So that's a popular thing you use in video editing, and you can create one in Photoshop. So we're going to show you how to do that. Next, we'll be showing you how to edit a still image in Photoshop for use in Premiere Pro and how working between these softwares, they link with each other. So there's a seamless sort of workflow there. And then next, we'll be opening Premiere Pro clip or sequence in After Effects in order to create animated lower thirds. And then we will be opening our sequence in Audition to do some sound editing. And then finally, throughout the day, we're going to discuss other Adobe softwares that aren't as well known that you can use to improve your workflow. So, with that being said, we're just going to get right into it. So we're going to create a new project in here. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it the name of our workshop. And if you're working off of a hard drive, you can save it to your hard drive, wherever you'd like to save it to. Okay. Now, for the purpose of this workshop, we're just going to work with some of the sample media that Premiere Pro offers you to practice with. If you didn't know that this existed, this is actually a great tool if you want to get better at video editing. They have these sample clips for you that you can practice color correcting, you can practice basic editing, whatever. So if you're ever looking for footage just to practice with, this is a great resource for you. So you can go ahead and choose whichever one you want. If you're following along with my instructions, I'm going to go ahead and choose this one just as our practice clip for today. So once you use that, it's going to open up the window for you. And if you've never used Premiere Pro before, we're going to go everything we're doing today is pretty basic across all the softwares that we're going to be using. One thing to note is if you have a specific way you like your workspace to look, up here, window workspaces, you can change it to whatever you'd like. I typically have mine set to this editing window, but you're welcome to choose whatever you'd like that makes the most sense for you. Okay, so now that we have our clip in here, we're gonna say, let's pretend that this is footage from a documentary we're doing or an interview that we're doing, and this is our subject. First thing we're gonna learn how to do is how to create a LUT for this footage. I'll change the lighting so it should be able to see that a little clearer now. We're going to go ahead and create a LUT for this footage. Say we want this to be black and white, or we want it to look a certain way. Luckily, the sample footage that Premiere gives you already looks pretty great, but we're just going to go ahead and play with it even more. So what you're going to do in order to do that is you're going to scrub through to find a good frame that you want to use as a reference for your LUT. So I'm going to go ahead and choose right here. Now, once you've chosen the frame that you want to use, what you'll do is you're going to press this camera right here, What this is going to do is export the frame as a still image. So you click that button. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it roller skating, just as a reference for what this is. And you'll save it as a JPEG. Wherever you want it to go to, this is fine for me. And then you want to make sure that this import into project is selected. Now, what this is going to do, if you had this unchecked, it would basically just export the image to an external folder somewhere. But if you choose import into project and you hit OK, what it's going to do is now in the project window, the image is going to appear right there. And that's what we want for this because now that we have it, all we're going to do is we're going to right click and we're going to go all the way down and we're going to go to edit in Adobe Photoshop. So what I'm going to be showing you today is how Premiere lets you open clips, sound, images, video in other softwares. So we're going to do this as an example. So we're going to go edit in Adobe Photoshop. And what it's going to do is it's going to open that image for us right into Photoshop, which saves us the time of, taking the screen grab, going to Photoshop, opening it. It just opens right up into the software for you. So now here at this point, we're free to do whatever we want to this image. We're going to edit it just as if it's a photo that you have in Adobe Photoshop. So like I was saying, for example, in order to change some of the color, if we go down here, um, there's lots of different things we can do with it. We can mess with the curves. You can play with the brightness and the contrast. You can go in and we can play with the color balance. We won't get too in the weeds of color correcting and all that stuff because this is just meant to show you as like an example. Um, but you can go in and you can mess with this if you want, say you want to have it be a fun color. You kind of want to play with color. You can do that here. Or if you wanted it to be black and white, you could come in and you can make it black and white. And it even gives you all of these options to mess with the specific colors and how they look in the black and white. So if you have this open and you're following along, just take a minute or two to play with the image, get it to somewhere that you would like it to be. So I'll just give us about 2 to 3 minutes here just playing with this.
Black and white, how do you get back to the color?
If you want to get rid of it, so you see these layers on the side here? You can delete any of them. So if you've done something to the black and white, you should have this layer here that says black and white. You can just toggle it on and off to see it on and off, or you can delete it fully. Do you have that option?
Yeah. We just
You can just click on it and then delete it. Press like delete on your keyboard. Cool. Okay. Now, I've decided I do want to do black and white, so I'm gonna keep mine like this. And now, once you've made all of the changes that you want to make to your image, you're happy with how it looks. I'm gonna make it a little less bright. Once you're happy with your image, however you've decided to edit it, what you're gonna do is you're going to select all of the layers on this side. So you can just click one and then hold shift and click the bottom one and it should select all of the layers. And then you're going to go to File, Export, and then for your export, you're going to export it as these color lookup tables. This is what's going to create it into the LUT that we need for Premiere. So once you get there, you can call it whatever you'd like. And then we're going to make sure for this quality section, we'll change it to high. If it's changed to anything else, make sure it's high. And then for these formats, the only one you want to have selected is cube. This is what's going to create the LUT for us. So once you have all of these settings that look like this, you'll hit OK. And then you can save it to wherever you want. I'm just going to save it to my downloads for now. And then we're going to go back into Premiere. And in order to apply that LUT to our footage, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our Lumetri color. If you're ever unsure where to find a certain window, you can always come up here to window and find it here. So this is the one we want, Lumetri color. And once we do that, we're in color and you'll go to basic correction here. Input LUT. We're going to go to browse and you're going to find the LUT you've just created. So mine's right here. I was playing with this earlier, so I have multiple, but this is the one that I was playing with. And once you do that, you should see your video should now look the same as what you've done in Photoshop. So if I go back and forth between these, they should look the same. And now, since we've added it as a LUT in Premiere, it's going to apply to the entire clip. So the whole clip will get that color grading. So you can do this within Premiere. Premiere has its own color grading capabilities. But if you like Photoshop more, it's something you're more comfortable with, it is something that you can do in Photoshop as well. So if you're just making a quick project, you don't feel like going through and color grading every single image, you can create a LUT that has a look that you like for across the board, and you can apply it to your clips in Premiere. And then from there, under that basic correction, you can continue to change things as needed. But the LUT gives you a base to work with. And then from clip to clip, you may have to adjust. But yeah, that's how you create a LUT. Any questions about LUTs? We can also see if we import some more of the footage from here, we can see how maybe it would look on a different clip. And it can show you how sometimes LUTs are great, but they're not going to make everything look the same across the board, because sometimes when you shoot something, it's going to look, not every clip is going to look the same color-wise. So let's pull that in. So we have our other sample clip. Now let's just try applying that LUT to this to see what it looks like. Looks pretty good. There may be some adjustments you need to make these two match to each other, but it's a pretty good base. So now the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to open a still image you may have in your Premiere Pro timeline into Photoshop itself. So I'm going to pull an image that I have. I have this image I took before our workshop today. And I'm going to drag it right in there. You can pull any image that you may have if you want that you would want to use, but if you'd like to use the same one that I'm working with, I can airdrop it to you now if that works. So now that you have the image in your project window, we're going to go ahead and open it up to see it in our source window. So you'll just double click it and you can see it here. So this is an image photo that I took outside in the digital lounge of our whiteboard. It says, "Welcome to the DL." let's say I'm creating a video and I want to use this image as sort of like a intro to the video. It's a video about the digital lounge. Um, it's a great picture. I really like it. However, I'm noticing that you can see some of the, like on the sides of the whiteboard here and here. And there's also these things up here that I want to get rid of. And I just want to, I want to play with it. So basically, what you can do is if we drag it into the sequence. First thing we're going to need to do, because there's a difference in quality here, we'll have the clip selected, go to Effects Controls up here, and we're just going to change the scale so that it's where it's supposed to be. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the image and we're going to choose Edit in Adobe Photoshop. So once you click that, it's going to open the image right into Photoshop. So now what we can do is we can use the tools that Adobe Photoshop has to get this image ready to be used in Premiere. So, like I was saying before, one of the things we want to do is get rid of this orange on the sides. So we can play around with some tools that we have in order to do that. First thing that comes to mind for me is using the clone stamp tool. So if you're familiar with Photoshop, you've used this before. If not, basically what the clone stamp tool is it basically you can select an area on the image to replicate, and then you can use that to paint over other areas of the image. So if you choose the clone stamp tool, if you're working with Mac, you'll press down on the option button and then choose a target area that you want to replicate. So for me, I'm going to choose right around here. And what that does is creates a reference point. I'm going to increase the size of my brush. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start painting. And you can see the little plus point, that's what it's replicating. So if I were to go too far in, it would start replicating the orange. But we should be good. So you can just go ahead and start doing that. And it's going to make this area white now. And you can keep going. You can change the reference area. You can play with it. And you can see it's slowly making the image all a cohesive white color. So let's spend a couple minutes here playing with this, and let's try to get the orange completely erased. And let's also try to get rid of these things. So the way you would do that is same. We would probably use the clone stamp tool. You would press and hold Option. I'm going to choose right about here to replicate. I'm going to click that and then just go ahead and paint these objects out. Because we're working with a white image, we can get away with not being super granular. We can, you know, use it as more of a paintbrush there. So um, let's just take a couple minutes now and try to clean up the image as best as possible so that we can import it back into our project. And let me know if you have any questions. Remember, if you need to change the area you're replicating from again, you press and hold Option and then click. You could even, with this image, because this is all was done in dry erase marker, you could even go into the text and fill in some of the gaps to make it look a little bolder. This would be especially useful if you had like a tablet that you could use in order to work in Photoshop. But say you want to choose the paintbrush and choose your color to black, you can go in and make everything look a little bolder too. So I was working on a project recently where I was um, putting together a credit sequence for a short film that I made. And I wanted it to be all still photos across a corkboard that are edited together to animated together to look as if there is movement between them. And I had to go through and do this to make everything look a little bit bolder, a little bit poppier because everything was done by hand. So I went through digitally after the fact and drew over everything so that it looked just better um, on a screen. So you can do stuff like that. You can do whatever you want to the image to sort of improve it, but I'll give you a couple more minutes to play with that. So to do that, up here in the top left, under right here, you can press the arrow and you can change the size of your brush. And you can also change like the hardness. So you can have it be like a soft edge so that the changes don't look as abrupt. You can change that all here. Okay. Now that we've had some time to play around with it, what I'm going to show you now is what you need to do to bring it back into Photoshop, which is actually nothing. All you need to do is save the project, Command S, saved. Now, if we open Premiere, all of our changes are going to show up there. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to export it out of Photoshop and re-import it into Premiere. It tracks all of the changes that you make, and it's a simultaneous it updates everything in real time. So it's really cool if you're in Premiere and you're working on something and you just need to touch it up in Photoshop a little bit. You can do it and it's really seamless. You don't have to export, import, do all that mess. It just does it all for you. So it's really cool, and not a lot of people know that you can do this. So now we've covered how to create a LUT in Photoshop. We've covered how to seamlessly work between Photoshop and Premiere. So we're going to close the book on Photoshop for today. Those are some of the cool things you can do with it in conjunction to a project on Premiere. And now we're going to move on to looking at After Effects and how you can use After Effects to enhance your projects in Premiere. So, um, with this, let's say, like I said before, we're going to pretend like this is footage from an interview that we're doing with this person who is a roller skater. Um, a lot of times when you're doing a documentary or an interview type video, you want to have what's called a lower third, which is basically a little graphic that appears here that says the person's name, maybe their job title, maybe their age. You've probably seen it on documentaries, you've probably seen it on reality TV show. It's to help introduce us to a person. Now, you could do it in Premiere, but it would get a little complicated and it's just honestly easier to do in After Effects itself. Now, what you may not know is that you don't have to open After Effects, create a whole new project, do it, export it, bring it into Premiere. Basically, you can just open After Effects straight from Premiere, similarly to how we did it with Photoshop. So I'm going to show you how to do that. If you right click on, let's say we want this clip to have the lower third to introduce us to this person. If you right click or double click the clip right here, you're going to go all the way down to right here, and you're going to choose Replace with After Effects Composition. So once you click that, this is going to open straight into After Effects. Now we can call it whatever we want. I'm just going to call this one roller skating. You can save it to wherever you'd like, and you're going to save it as an After Effects project. Okay, so now it's opened our clip right into After Effects. Now, what we're going to do now is create the lower third. So it's a pretty simple process, but we're going to go through it slowly, just step by step to make sure you're following along and tracking everything we're doing. So first up, what we're going to do is we're going to go to this toolbar in the top left corner where we have all these different tools, and we're going to choose the text image. So basically, anywhere on our composition, now that we have the text tool that we've chosen from up here, anywhere we click is going to create a new text box. So we don't know her name, so I'm just going to call her Jane Doe. I don't want to get ahead of myself. We're going to choose a more basic font. Okay, so this is her name. Then we're going to go ahead and choose the selection tool, and we're gonna move it around. What we can do is we can go here to grid, and we can give ourselves the grid. So it gives us a better way of choosing where we want to put this. Usually something like this goes in the bottom left. But it depends project to project. You can play around with it, have fun. We're gonna put it like right here. Over on this side, we're going to change some things about it. So we're going to change the size, say we want it to be about that big. Color, maybe we want to have a fun color. We can change it to say this. And then we're going to go ahead and use the text tool again to create another layer. And this one, we're going to say what her job is. So let's pretend like she's a roller skater, an activist. Maybe she's an activist in the roller skating community, whatever that would mean. So that would be what we choose for her like sub heading of the lower third. And we can go ahead and change the size of that, make it smaller, and align it so that it fits properly. Any questions so far? Okay, now, next step, we're gonna go ahead and change the font of this. Say we want we want to use a fun font. Now, when you go to the font section over here, there's already populated a bunch of different fonts that you can use. However, there's actually more options than this, and it's another feature that Adobe has that's not as well known too, and that's Adobe Fonts. So if we click right here to go to Adobe Fonts, it's going to open up Adobe Fonts online. So let me log into my account. Oh, come on. Jeez. Okay. There we go. So when you open Adobe Fonts, they have so much here. This is a really useful place for you to look. for anything you're using in Adobe. So whether it be Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, Premiere, After Effects, any of the fonts that you download here will, if you add the family to your profile, it will then update so that you can use that font in any Adobe program. So there's so many options here. You can look based on certain tags. So like you can look for a clean font, you can look for a funky font, you can look for a marker font. There's different categories you can look at here. They have all these different kinds. You can look for classifications if you're really into fonts and you know the different things. You're looking for a serif font, you're looking for a mono font. Um, you can also look according to these properties as well. So there's a lot of things you can do. Let's say for this one, she's a roller skater. She's got a really fun vibe. So let's look at funky fonts. And it's going to show you all these different fonts that are all really cool and really unique. And this is more than you have just within what's already given to you from Adobe. So we can go through all of these, check them out. Yes, yes, you should have access to Adobe fonts with your Creative Cloud license through Annenberg. And I don't know how many, but I want to say thousands, if not more, of fonts that are available to you. So if you go to the Adobe Creative Cloud, you can go straight to fonts from there and it'll lead you to this page and you can just search and look through all the fonts. They've got some really cool stuff. Um, Say we decided we want to try this Art Deco one. We can look at those fonts. But back in the funky fonts, I'm gravitating towards this one right now. I think this one's fun. Maybe it fits the vibe of the person that the story's about. So what we're going to do is add family. And that's it. Once you've added the family, you should be able to let me refresh. Once you've added the family, you should see this remove button, meaning that it's been added. There's nothing more you need to do. What we're going to do is we're going to head straight back to After Effects. Oh, let me remember the name of that font. RL Folklore. If you go here and you type it in, it should already populate for you there. So it should already be added. You don't have to close the app or anything. It should just automatically update. So we can see that's what that font looks like. It's kind of fun. We can test with the other one as well. There's another font that I downloaded earlier that was pretty cool. That one was called, what was it called? This. So we've got some fun fonts there. We can mess with it. I think that this looks pretty fun, so I'm just going to keep this as is. Um, you can go through and look at the different fonts, see if any of them catch your eye, and then apply them to here. So I'll give you a moment if you want to look through Adobe fonts. Um, they have a lot of options, and then also, I believe you can look at the ones that you have in your libraries. You can go to My Fonts, and there's a list of different fonts that I've downloaded. There's those ones. I don't have any favorites, but you can favorite certain fonts. You can look at your fonts over here, the ones that are added. So I can see all the fonts that I've added. And it's a cool place. So you don't have to pay for fonts or anything. Adobe has a lot of really great options that you can find just right here. So now back in After Effects, we can go ahead and remove this grid because personally it um, is a lot for me to look at. Now, next thing we're going to do is we need to have the actual banner that your lower thirds appears on. So in order to do that, we're going to go to Layer, New, and then Solid. And then once we go there, we can choose a color that we want to use. Um, you can choose whatever color you want. I'm having fun with this one. I think we're gonna go with like a purple. You hit OK, and it's gonna create this like purple background for you. Now in order to crop this so that it's just a rectangle here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna hold the space bar and then drag this kind of over here so we have some more room. And then up in this toolbar up here, we're going to go to the rectangle tool. So we're going to choose the rectangle tool, and then we're going to go ahead and create a rectangle where we want the lower thirds to appear. And it's going to just automatically create that bar for us. And so now we've created the actual lower third that we want to use. This is what we want it to say, what we want it to look like. But another reason why we're doing this in After Effects is that we can animate it and we can create some motion. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another layer. We're going to layer new, and we're going to make this one a null object. Okay. And now with this null object, what we're going to do is we're going to select all of these, the two text layers and the color layer. And we're going to go to this right here that looks like the kind of swirl of one of the layers that we're trying to attribute to the null layer. And we're going to click and drag it to the null layer. So now that we've done that, we've basically sort of grouped these all together into the null layer, and we can add all of our animations to this layer. So, any questions before I move forward? Okay. So we're gonna click down into the null layer. We're gonna click down into transform, and we're gonna create these markers. So we're going to click right here, and that's gonna give us a point. And then we're also gonna drag our cursor right to the beginning of the whole clip. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna change the position. This value, this is 960. You can click and drag, and it's gonna move that object. So we're gonna click and drag it until it is off the screen. So basically what that does is now between the beginning and this point, that layer has to make it to that position. So what that looks like in real time is this. Wait. Hold on. Need to make sure that this is at 960. Okay, now it should work. Not. Oh, I chose the wrong thing. Sorry about that. My bad. You want to make sure you choose for position here. Okay. Make that what the original value was, 960. Okay, now it should work. And basically what it's doing is it's animating that title card in. But that was pretty slow. So what you can always do is with this, you can drag it to be closer. And what that's going to do is create a faster transition. It's still pretty slow though, so we can drag it even further to be closer. but I want it to be even faster. So I'm going to drag it a little bit closer. And now what we'll see is a pretty quick transition and it's going to fly in. But now let's say this clip is 30 seconds long and I don't need this to be there for the entire 30 seconds. So what we're going to do is create another marker. Let's see when I want it to go away. So we've clicked play. It's flown in. We have it sitting there. Everyone's had a chance to read it. Right here, I'm going to create another marker, another keyframe. And then we're going to create, what we're going to do is we're going to change the position again so that it's gone. Okay, so now if we watch, now this isn't exactly what we want because basically what we've now done is that between these two keyframes, this one's in our initial position and this one is gone, it's creating this slow transition. But that's not what we want. What we want is for the thing to come in, stay exactly in the same position for a couple seconds, and then go away. So in order to solve that, we're just going to create another keyframe right here. And then we're going to change that so that it's the position. I know that value is 960, so I'm just going to put it in. And now, instead, what you'll see is it flies in, stays there, and then it goes away. You can adjust the timing of this all, make it a little faster. And that's how you create a lower third. And that's a pretty basic version of it. Obviously, because we're in After Effects, you can get really fancy with it. There's a lot of really cool things you can do in After Effects, but that's a whole other workshop in and of itself. So I just wanted to show you a basic version of that so I can show you how we can bring it out of Premiere and then bring this all back into Premiere. Any questions at this point?
So you're about to dump this in Premiere now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now what you're going to see is similarly to Photoshop, all I'm going to do here is save it. And when I go into Premiere, it's already updated. So you don't have to add any additional files. You don't have to export. You don't have to do anything. What we've done is because we've opened this clip in After Effects, it's baking in everything we do in After Effects straight back into our project in Premiere. So the pros to that are that it streamlines your workflow, it makes things less messy. You don't have to have adjustment layers or anything here. It's just a clean, seamless workflow. Now the con is you can't go in and edit this in Premiere. You have to open it back up in After Effects. But as you've seen before, it's a pretty seamless back and forth. So you can just go ahead, reopen it back into After Effects, make the adjustments you want to make, and then bring it right and then save it and it'll update straight into Premiere. So, as you can see with Photoshop and After Effects, you can open clips and images straight into those softwares, and it's going to create anything you change will be updated simultaneously back into your timeline in Premiere. Any questions? Okay. Great. So now that we've done that, we've covered Photoshop, we've covered After Effects, we've looked at Adobe fonts. Something else that you can do is you can edit your audio in Adobe Audition. And so similarly to Photoshop and After Effects, Premiere has its own built-in way that you can open your project in Audition. But before we do that, I do want to show you first how to get some sound effects and music that you can use. So within Premiere itself, if you go to, I'm just gonna search essential sound. So it's right here. So in our window, if you go here to essential sound, it's gonna open this window over here. that is from Adobe Stock. So Adobe Stock is another thing that you can use to get stock footage, so video, photos, and that even applies to sound, so sound effects, music, ambiences, all of that good stuff. So Adobe Stock is a really great resource that you can use, and you can open it directly in Premiere Pro, which is pretty cool. So first, because obviously this is a clip that was shot in slow motion, and if you're familiar with shooting video, you'll know that if you shoot in slow motion, you can't record sync sound with it because you can't record sound in slow motion. You can record sound in real time and then turn it slow motion, but you can't record sound in slow motion. So, in order to make this sound a little bit better, we're going to go through and add some ambience and music so that it feels like a fuller clip. I'm going to stop talking while I do this because I have to turn up my volume and I don't want there to be feedback. So just follow along and watch me as I look through some of the options that we have here in Adobe Stock. That one could be fun. They have lots of music options. And you can even search by genre and vibe. So if we're in this music tab, there's different moods, angry, atmospheric, drama. There's so many different ones. Um, Say for this one, maybe we want playful. You can choose that filter and it's gonna give you all the options that work with that. That's a fun option. You can then also choose by genre. So there's acoustic, background, all these sorts of things. Let's see what pop has to offer. That's fun. And then there's some more filters. You can choose free for options that are free, which I'm assuming you would probably want. You could even go as far as to choose what BPM you want, what tempo you want, which could be helpful depending on what it is that you're doing. And the duration for vocals, there's all these different filters that you can use. So I liked, let's see, let's look at maybe some R&B. That's fun. There was one I saw earlier that I liked. So let's go see if we can go find that again. Sure. Let's try this one. That seems fun. So you can just go straight in and drag the music right into there. And it's going to add it. Now, what I've noticed is that's actually shorter of a clip than I would like. So I'm going to choose something else instead. This one could work. So let's try dragging that in. Okay, so we've done that for music. Let's see if we can get anything for effects. Now, just like the music, there's all these different filters that you can use. So ambience is a good one for if you want something that goes across the entire scene. Um, there's sound design. It's an option. What's in there? So there's stuff like this. Mm. Now let's say we want some sort of sound effect for when the her name pops up into frame. Say we like this whoosh. What we can do is we can drag that in and we can play with that and use that. Now, with all of the sound that I've imported, you can go ahead and edit that right in Premiere. I've done sound editing in Premiere. It's pretty simple. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it. But if you're working on a more complicated project, there's going to be a lot of sound involved. Say you just want to be able to work on your sound on its own, in its own sort of project, you can open this in Adobe Audition and do a whole sound design session there. So, in order to do that, you're going to go to the Edit tab, which is in the top left, and you're going to go down to Edit in Adobe Audition. Now, you can do this based on clip or based on the whole sequence. Say you didn't need to edit all of your audio in Adobe Audition, but you do have one clip where the sound is really bad. Say there's an air conditioner running in the background and it's really loud, and you want to use some tools in Adobe Audition to cut out those frequencies. You can just open one clip in Adobe Audition. But for our case, we want to do some sound design, so I'm going to open the whole sequence in Adobe Audition. You can call it whatever you want. For all of these settings, you're going to choose the entire sequence. Video, you're going to do this send through dynamic link. Audio handles at 1 second is good. And then you can leave everything as it's checked. And you want to make sure that this open in Adobe Audition is checked so that it opens us straight into Adobe Audition. And then you'll hit OK. Okay, so now what it's done is it's opened our project in Adobe Audition. It's transferred all of our sound files over, and it's given us a video reference image. So, basically what we can now do is go in and edit our sound in this window. And this Adobe Audition, editing a whole scene in here is a lot easier because Adobe Audition is geared towards sound. Whereas Premiere, you can adjust your windows so that it's a more sound focused, but it's much easier to do this sort of stuff in Audition. So the things I want to do here are play with the music and play with our little sound effect we've added here. So first, what I want to do is I want to listen through all of this music because we have a little bit of time. So I'm going to listen through some of it and decide what part we want to use for this clip. So, in order to just listen to the music, you can press this S button. What that's going to do is solo the track, meaning that that's the only thing we're going to hear. So, we're not going to hear the sound effect. If we had other sounds, we wouldn't hear them either. So, we're just going to listen to the music. Okay, I have to change my audio hardware settings. Bear with me. So the timing of all that feels pretty good to me, but there's some stuff I want to play with. So, first, I think what I want to do is I want to gradually fade in the music. So it doesn't start off super loud, but it gets louder and louder. So, in order to do that, right here at the bottom left of any audio clip in Adobe Audition is this little like it looks like levels, like a volume icon almost. And what you'll want to do with that is if you hover over it, it's going to have a little hand icon with two arrows on either side. If you click and hold, that's going to change your volume. So what we're going to do with that is we're going to get this to a level that we want it to be once we get to our loudest point. And we want to make sure that we're not making it too loud. So you can see with the waveforms, it's pretty loud. That out there. That feels pretty good. And then what we're going to do in order to create the fade is right here, this little box that has half that's white and half that's dark. That's how we're going to create our fade. So we're going to click and drag, and it's going to create a fade. Now, what I want to do is I want to do a gradual fade in until the music gets louder. So I'm going to do the fade until right about here. Now, what this is creating is an exponential fade, but I like to use linear fade so that it is a constant change. So we're going to try to play with that. It's kind of finicky, but if you're dragging back and forth, if you pull down, it's going to change your line, and now it's a linear fade. So now let's listen to that. I'm going to change my fade so it goes to about here. And I'm going to change it so it's exponential on this way because I want it to be a lot quieter at first. So let's see how that sounds. And I like the way that that sounds. So I'm done playing with the music here. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. The sample media audio that came along with the clip, there's nothing on it because, like I explained, you can't record sound with slow motion video, so that could be why there's nothing here. We can honestly go ahead and delete that clip because there's nothing on it. There's nothing we can use. And usually we can move up our sound effect because usually we like our effects to be on just for organization purposes on levels channels high sorry channels higher than the music and ambience. So we're going to move our impact sound effect to up here. And we're going to line it up so that the whoosh happens whenever her title card comes in. Okay, so it lands about here. That's when we want the peak of the audio to hit. So if we move this around, let's see how that sounds. We're going to solo this track. It's a little dramatic, but it's kind of fun. Now again, we're going to adjust the levels because as you can see, it peaks. Whenever it gets to this red, it's peaking. So we don't want that. So we're going to make it a little bit quieter. Get a little bit quieter. We don't want it to be too prominent. Just something to subtly add to it. Now, if we unsolo this and we play everything together, it's still pretty loud, so I'm going to make it even softer. So now that feels pretty good to me. Now the last thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get rid of this. We don't need this. And then I'm gonna go ahead and make the music sh much shorter. And I'm gonna go ahead and have the music end right about here. But then, because I want the music to fade out, I'm gonna do what I did for the beginning and have it fade out this way. So cool. We've done some sound designy type stuff in here. Any questions before we bring it back into Premiere? Okay. So the way to bring this back in is a little bit different. We can't just save it and it'll update in Premiere. What we need to do is first we'll save it, and then in order to bring it back into Premiere, we're going to go to Export, Export to Adobe Premiere Pro. So it's just one extra step that you have to take. So once you click Export to Adobe Premiere Pro, you're going to get this window. So you can name the file whatever you want it to be named. You can save it to wherever you want to save it. Sample rate, we can keep at 48,000. And then here is where you're going to have some options. This one, export each track as stem. Basically, what that means is you will get, because we have this sound effect and we have this music, so basically you're going to be importing two audio tracks back into Premiere. If you don't have a ton of tracks, you might want to do that so that you can play with it more in Premiere, because if you export them by track, you can have a little bit more flexibility if you're not opening it back up in Audition. However, if you have a lot of tracks, or if you know this is your final sound, you're not going to be editing it anymore, and you just want to keep everything clean, you can export them as mixdown session, a mixdown. So for our sake, depends on what kind of thing you're editing, but most of the time you're going to choose stereo. If you're doing a project in surround sound, that's what 5.1 is. That means it's basically what surround sound is. But we're going to choose this mixdown session to stereo file. I'm going to show you what both of these look like, though, just so you get a sense. And you want to make sure this open in Adobe Premiere Pro is checked. So we're going to do export. Now here, you're going to copy the active sequence, and you can choose where you want it to go, but I'm going to choose new audio track. So now what that's done is it's given us two clips on two tracks, one for each track in our audition session. But say I'm like, I don't like the look of that. I just want to have one clean track. So we can go ahead and delete these. I'm going to delete these tracks. I'm going to go back into Audition. I'm going to go back to Export, Multi-Track Mixdown. Oh, sorry. Export to Adobe Premiere Pro. And then we're going to choose Mixdown Session, Stereo File, open it in Adobe Premiere Pro, and export. I'm just going to overwrite that. New track. And now this is everything we've done in Audition mixed down to one track. So the sound effect is in here and the music are all in here. And you can go ahead and mute all of your other soundtracks because this has everything in it. So if we go ahead and play, it has everything. So now we've learned how to open our project in Audition and bring those files back. So now at this point, we've worked in Photoshop, we've worked in After Effects, we've worked in Audition, we've used Adobe Stock, we've used Adobe Fonts, and now we've gotten our project. Let's say we've gotten our project to a place where we're ready to export it and get notes from people. Say this is just a draft, you're submitting it to other people you're working with or friends or other people to get their thoughts on what you've done and give you notes. Now, Adobe has a great software that you can use for these things, and it's called frame.io. Um, it's linked to Adobe. However, I'm not sure with the Annenberg Creative Cloud license if you get access to Frame.io. Um, you might, I'm just not sure. We were discussing this before the workshop. So, we can go ahead and try. So you may or may not have access to it, but I'm going to show you how to use it anyway because it's a really great tool. So, in order to get there, it has its own built-in window to Premiere. So if you go to Window and Frame.io, you're going to go to that and you're just going to choose this Frame.io. And it's going to open this window. I've already logged into my account here, and this was something I uploaded earlier when I was testing all of this. So this is something I've already done, but let's say I want to upload um, a new. I want to upload this to Frame.io and I can send that link to people to get their notes. So I'm gonna go to upload and I'm gonna go to active sequence. And you can call it whatever you want. I'm gonna say skating interview. And if you're uploading different versions of something, it's always best practice to note that. So I'll always just do underscore V1 because this is the first version. If you're doing the next version, you do V2, V3, V4, etc. We're going to do V1. This is fine. You're going to do the whole sequence. Um, and then render to scratch this, that's fine for now. And then upload. And what it's going to do is it's going to open Adobe Media Encoder. And this is going to be the sort of middleman that brings your project from Premiere Pro to Frame.io. So it's going through and it's just, there's nothing else I have to do. It's doing it all for me. Okay, now it's all finished and it's been uploaded here to Frame.io. So now we see it's been uploaded and it's being prepared for the web. Now, the cool thing about Frame.io is that you can go through and say I sent this link to a friend. If you're opening it on the web, this is what it looks like. So here is the one I just uploaded. Say I sent the link to the friend, this is what they would receive. Okay, so they can go through and they can watch the whole video and say, I'm watching this and I see the sound, I hear the sound effect that was used. And in my mind, I think, I don't know if that sound effect really fits that moment. I feel like it's a little too metallic. I feel like you could find a better sound effect. What you can do is you can leave notes and they'll be time-stamped. So I can say, don't like this sound effect and send it. And now all the notes that people leave will be populated on this side. And then you'll see these little stamps as it goes. So say I'm watching through and oh, this ended up being really long. I'm watching. And I think that this clip is running way too long. I can leave this note here. Send it. And it's going to leave that other new time-stamped note here. And so this is really cool. Multiple people can add their notes and their different icons will populate here. Their notes will populate here in order of time code. And then when I go back to my project and I'm making changes based on the notes that I've gotten, I can go through and I can reply, like people can reply to notes. You can like the notes if you agree with it. And then what I can do is as I'm going through, okay, I see don't like this sound effect. I can go back in, change the sound effect. And then I can press this mark as complete, meaning that I saw the note, I made a change, I addressed the note, so it's complete. And this is a really cool way to receive notes, address notes, and organize them. Say I went through and I shortened the clip, or I decide I actually don't agree with you. I think the clip is fine. I've thought about your note, I've addressed it, it's done. So that's a pretty cool way that thing that you can use to get feedback on your projects. And all of these things that I'm doing, you can do straight from Premiere, which is pretty cool. So that's that. That's how all of these softwares can work with each other, talk to each other, specifically from the perspective of a Premiere Pro project, because um, there's the most you can do within Premiere that you would need the other applications for. We didn't get into other ones like Illustrator or InDesign. Those aren't really as relevant, and I don't believe there's even options to open those applications from Premiere. Um, but there's more things, and Adobe has so much that you can use and to make your workflow more seamless. And the one last thing I'm going to show you is say we have created this project. Okay, I'll open. So say we've created this project and we want to post it. What's a really cool thing that Adobe has is Adobe Express, and you can use it to create social media posts. So if you go over here, say we've made our video and we want to post it to Instagram, you can go ahead and do it, and you can add channels. You can add your Instagram, you can add your Facebook, you can add all these things, and you can upload your media and post to multiple channels straight from Adobe Express. So that's another cool thing that Adobe offers to help you streamline your workflow. But beyond that, that is all I have for you today. Are there any questions? Okay, great. Thank you for coming to this workshop. We hope to see you at more workshops, and you can always check out our offerings and content we have at annenbergdl.org. So, thank you.